To live is to ache. Every birth begins with a cry, and in that cry lies the most honest statement a being can make about existence. Before a name is given, before the lungs learn rhythm, before the eyes open to light, there is the sound of protest. It is not joy, it is not discovery, it is refusal. The infant does not rejoice in being alive. It howls because the paradise of unawareness has been ripped away. That cry is the first philosophy. It declares that life begins not in peace, but in disturbance. Something within us already knows that to exist is to suffer the weight of becoming. The poets call life a gift, but no one remembers asking for it. We are thrust into this theater without consent, without rehearsal, without script. We open our eyes to a world that has been moving long before us and will continue long after. A world that does not pause to explain itself. And yet, we spend the rest of our years trying to make sense of the scene we were thrown into, constructing meaning, building altars, inventing gods and goals, to soothe the unease of being here at all. But if we are honest, brutally honest, we must admit the unease never leaves. We simply grow better at disguising it. The universe does not notice our arrival. Stars burn, worlds turn, galaxies collide, all without witness, all without purpose. We are the accident of a blind mechanic, the flicker of awareness in an indifferent storm. Nature is not cruel. Cruelty requires intention. The universe is not kind either. Kindness requires empathy. It is neither. It simply is endless, mindless, and patient. It devours suns and gives birth to others with the same indifference. We, fragile creatures that we are, mistake its silence for meaning. We stare into the night sky and imagine destiny, but the stars do not answer. Their light is older than our species. Their glow is not message, but aftermath. And yet, within this cosmic indifference, consciousness flickers, and with it, tragedy. For to be aware is to be separate from what is. Awareness divides. The animal that feels hunger simply eats. The human feels hunger and asks, why? The animal dies and returns to dust. The human watches death and invents eternity. Consciousness, that fragile mirror, reflects not only the world, but its own emptiness. We are cursed with the ability to see the futility of our striving, and yet we cannot stop striving. We are both the wound, and the one who knows the wound exists. The ancients called this the curse of knowledge, but it is deeper than myth. It is the structure of the mind itself, the intellect serving a master it cannot defy, the will. The will is the blind force that drives everything to persist the plants, stretching toward the sun, the predator stalking its prey, the human dreaming of immortality. It is not reasoned, it is not moral. It is hunger given form, and our intellect, far from freeing us, merely gives that hunger imagination. It turns instinct into philosophy, appetite into art, lust into poetry. The will commands, and the mind invents beautiful lies to justify obedience. We like to think of ourselves as rational, but reason is the masked desire wears to seem noble. Behind every ambition lies fear, fear of insignificance, of decay, of being forgotten. Behind every romance lies the tremor of loneliness, the will seeking continuity through another body. Even our virtues are but the will's disguises. Generosity is the will protecting its tribe. Compassion is the will recognizing itself in another's pain. The mind, proud of its cleverness, builds entire civilizations to serve the will's endless hunger and calls the result progress. But if one pauses, truly pauses, the illusion begins to crumble. Sit alone in a quiet room long enough without distraction, and you will feel it. The restlessness that has no name. It is not boredom. It is not thought. It is the will itself, pacing behind the walls of your awareness, demanding motion, demanding something to chase. We feed it with plans, projects, pleasures, and people. Yet, the moment one pursuit ends, another emerges, sharper and more insistent. The will cannot be fulfilled, for its very nature is lack. It does not desire because it suffers. It suffers because it desires. And so the pendulum begins. From craving to satiety, from hope to disappointment, from striving to decay. Every satisfaction contains its own poison. The meal that nourishes also begins digestion's slow undoing. The love that burns brightest carries within it the seed of grief. The success that brings applause also awakens the fear of losing it. We live swinging between two illusions, the illusion that something out there will complete us, and the illusion that losing it will destroy us. Neither is true. The will laughs at both extremes. It keeps us running, breathless, until the body collapses and the cycle resets in another form. To exist, then, is to participate in a cosmic hunger with no mouth and no stomach, only endless reaching. Every living thing is a fragment of this blind longing, each convinced it strives for its own sake, when in truth it is but a ripple of the same wave. The tiger's teeth, the saint's prayer, the mother's lullaby, all are instruments of the same will. Beauty and brutality share one root. Life feeds on life, endlessly rearranging itself under the illusion of purpose. And yet we keep seeking meaning, like moths drawn to a flame they do not understand. Perhaps meaning is not something to find, but something to endure, a mirage that keeps us walking through the desert of existence. We invent stories because silence is unbearable. We call them religions, philosophies, nations, dreams. But what they all share is the same defense against the void, the refusal to accept that the universe owes us nothing, that our yearning will never be answered. Look closely, and even time conspires in this tragedy. Every moment is the death of another. What we call living in the present is merely witnessing continuous decay in slow motion. The present is not a place, but a blade, cutting the future from the past. And we, trapped between both, call it life. It is easy to drown in such thoughts, to feel despair when faced with the nakedness of being. But despair is merely the recognition that illusion no longer works. When the narcotic of hope wears off, clarity arrives harsh, cold, and strangely beautiful. It is the moment the mirror stops flattering and begins reflecting. You see yourself not as you wish to be, but as you are, a brief spark of awareness in a blind cosmos, driven by a will that neither knows nor cares for your reasoning. And perhaps that is where truth begins, in the silence that follows illusion's death. When the stories crumble, what remains is not nothing, but stillness. The same stillness that existed before you were born and will remain long after. Against that vast quiet, the noise of human ambition seems almost tender, almost tragic. We are the noise that believes itself necessary. If this sounds bleak, it is only because we are addicted to comfort. We want philosophy to console, not to expose. But truth does not comfort, it cleanses. It strips away the soft fabric of delusion until only the bone remains. And in that bare seeing, something shifts. The ache does not vanish, but it becomes transparent. The will still moves, but the awareness watching it no longer believes it is I. There is pain, but no longer the extra agony of asking why me. There is existence, but without the fever of justification. This is the beginning of wisdom, not the discovery of meaning, but the acceptance of its absence. To stand before the mirror that bleeds and not look away. To see the ache as the very texture of being, not as its flaw. And in that seeing, a strange calm descends. It is not joy, it is not hope. It is the quiet dignity of understanding that the wound and the world are one and the same. Desire is a wound that refuses to close, for it is life itself. It hides beneath every movement, every thought, every dream. We imagine we chase many things, love, recognition, freedom, beauty, but peel away their surfaces, and you find the same pulse, the wish to escape the unease of incompleteness. We long not for what we want, but for the end of wanting. Yet the cruel symmetry of existence is that the end of wanting is death, and so life feeds on its own torment. Every heartbeat is the sound of something yearning to end and fearing to end at once. To understand suffering, one must stop running from it. For as long as you believe pain is a punishment, you will remain its prisoner. Pain is the voice of the will, reminding you that you exist as tension. The body aches not merely because it decays, but because it strives. Muscles burn because they resist stillness. The mind torments itself with memories and projections because it cannot rest in what is. Suffering is not the shadow of life, it is its outline, the proof that something within keeps moving against resistance. Consider hunger. It gnaws until it is fed, and when fed, it begins again. Consider lust a spark that drives creation itself. For a brief hour, it turns longing into communion, only to transform communion into new longing. Even the joy of fulfillment is the mask of the will, for every peak conceals the next descent. We mistake the pause between two torments for happiness and call that illusion meaning. The deeper truth is that happiness is not a condition of the world, but an intermission in the theater of suffering. And what of boredom, that quiet cousin of pain? It is the will's protest against stillness, the discomfort that arises when there is no immediate object to devour. In boredom, the will feeds upon itself. It whispers, do something, move somewhere, want again. The human who claims to seek peace truly seeks the thrill of desiring peace. Even meditation, that sacred art of cessation, is often nothing more than the will's refined attempt to grasp tranquility as a new object. The moment one says, I am calm, the spell is broken. Thus, we swing eternally between the two poles of the will's magnet, suffering when we desire, emptiness when we do not. We live suspended in that oscillation, craving release, yet fearing the silence that follows. We build entire lives from this dance, careers, families, identities. We mistake the rhythm for purpose, because the alternative that there is no rhythm but repetition is unbearable. The body itself is the will made visible. It demands endlessly air, water, heat, contact. Deny it and it revolts. Obey it and it enslaves. The saint and the glutton serve the same master in different uniforms. The saint fasts and prays, believing he conquers the flesh, yet in his fervor the will burns brighter, now disguised as devotion. The glutton consumes and calls it pleasure. The ascetic abstains and calls it virtue. Both are movements of the same hunger, the same refusal to be still. There is no escape through excess, nor through deprivation, only recognition. Every ache of the body is a reminder that life insists on itself. The heart pounds not for philosophy, but for blood. The lungs pull at air not for poetry, but for survival. The nerves scream not for meaning, but to preserve form. Even sleep, that small rehearsal for death, is demanded by the body so that it may wake again to serve its endless task. We imagine ourselves masters of flesh, but we are its servants, translating its impulses into words, calling them dreams. And beyond the body lies the subtler pain, the suffering of consciousness. To think is to witness one's chains. The intellect, in Schopenhauer's cruel truth, is not the liberator of the will, but its accomplice. It plans, it calculates, it invents elaborate strategies to prolong striving. When it fails, it rationalizes failure. When it succeeds, it immediately invents new goals to replace the old. The will, armed with intellect, becomes an artisan of agony, crafting civilizations, technologies, art, and war as expressions of its unending thirst. Observe the human species, and you will see the will playing chess with itself. One half builds, the other destroys. One generation dreams of peace, the next glorifies conquest. Empires rise, claiming to civilize. They collapse, leaving ruin and myth. What truly evolves is not morality, but sophistication, the will learning new ways to disguise repetition. We call this progress, but progress toward what? Toward more efficient desire, toward faster dissatisfaction. If you doubt it, look at the modern soul. Surrounded by abundance, it starves. We have conquered distance, yet we are strangers to our own hearts. We have tamed nature, yet we are tormented by restlessness more primal than any wilderness. The ancient peasant, gazing at the stars, feared the wrath of gods. The modern man, staring at his glowing screen, fears the emptiness of none. Both fears are masks of the same will, the dread of insignificance, the horror of being nothing more than a brief flicker in the void. And so we anesthetize ourselves with novelty. We chase stimulation, intoxication, distraction, anything that keeps the inner silence from growing audible. The will, when left unoccupied, begins to whisper unbearable truths, that everything we do is temporary, that every love will dissolve, that every victory is already decaying. So we fill our calendars, our feeds, our heads. We confuse movement with meaning. We call it ambition, but it is terror, the terror of facing life without a story. Suffering, then, is not an anomaly to be cured. It is the essence to be understood. To live is to participate in the hunger of the universe. The pain we flee is the same energy that animates the stars. It is not personal, it is structural. The tragedy is that awareness turns this impersonal force into private torment. The tiger's hunger is clean, immediate. It kills, eats, sleeps. The human's hunger becomes theater, guilt, anxiety, remorse, obsession. We do not suffer less because we are conscious. We suffer more because we know we suffer and cannot stop. And yet, there is a strange nobility in this awareness, in knowing that every heartbeat is both gift and death, that every joy carries its funeral in its arms. We touch something sacred, not hope, but lucidity. It is the painful privilege of being able to see. The eyes that recognize their own futility are also the eyes through which compassion is born. For when we truly understand our own striving, we can no longer despise the striving of others. We see the same will burning behind every face, the same fear, the same fragile spark. The beggar and the king, the child and the dying all, are actors in the same unwritten tragedy, their lines differing only in accent. This recognition does not end suffering, but it purifies it. The pain remains, but it is no longer poisoned by illusion. One begins to suffer consciously, to breathe through it as one might through a storm, knowing the storm is not against us, it simply is. To accept suffering is not to romanticize it, but to stop lying about its nature. Pain is not an enemy to defeat, but a teacher to endure. It teaches us the limits of the will, the fragility of joy, the impermanence of all that dazzles. It strips us of arrogance and makes philosophers of the heart. We are, each of us, fragments of a vast energy that knows nothing but wanting. To live lucidly is to see that energy for what it is, blind, magnificent, and indifferent. The task is not to escape the will, for while we live, we cannot. The task is to see through its disguises, to witness its endless play without worship or despair. For when the will is seen, naked and unmasked, something within us, something beyond the will, begins to watch. That watcher does not crave, it does not plead, it simply sees. In that seeing begins the first whisper of freedom, not the freedom of choice, for the will chooses through us, but the freedom of clarity, to know that every desire is borrowed, every fear rehearsed, every triumph temporary. This knowledge softens the claws of the world. The will still moves, but its noise no longer deafens. Suffering remains, but its sting becomes transparent. One suffers, as the sky endures the storm, not as resistance, but as witness. And perhaps this is all the salvation we can bear, not the end of pain, but the end of delusion. For when illusion dies, suffering becomes honest, and in honest suffering, there is a kind of peace. Civilization is the art of decorating the cage. The iron bars are still there, but we have learned to gild them, to hang mirrors, so that we might admire our reflection instead of the confinement. We call this progress. We take the blind hunger that governs all creatures and clothe it in ceremony, economics, and dreams of advancement. The ancient struggle for food becomes the modern hunger for status. The territorial fight of beasts becomes the political campaign, the corporate conquest, the curated image. Nothing has changed except the costume of desire. The will has simply learned manners. The world of machines and screens is the will made visible in metal and light. Technology, that proud idol of our age, is nothing but organized craving. Each invention solves a discomfort and immediately breeds 10 more. We shorten distance and grow restless with immediacy. We multiply voices and lose the ability to listen. Every new device promises freedom, yet each tightens the leash, demanding attention, obedience, renewal. What we call connectivity is the will extending its nervous system through cables and signals, reaching for itself in infinite recursion. We scroll, we tap, we refresh not to know, but to forget that nothing we find will suffice. And still we congratulate ourselves. We speak of enlightenment, of humanitarian triumphs, of the coming paradise just beyond the next update. The illusion of progress is the will's favorite mask. The belief that tomorrow will redeem today. We build monuments to the future because the present feels intolerable. The child is told to study so he may succeed. The worker labors so he may retire. The old man invests in legacy so his name will echo after he no longer hears it. the horizon keeps receding, but the chase itself becomes virtue. No one asks why the horizon is needed at all. The will ensures we keep running. The new religions have abandoned temples, but not faith. Their gods are happiness and productivity, their rituals measured in likes, profits, affirmations. The priest now speaks through influencers and wellness gurus, their sermons wrapped in pastel colors and gentle commands to manifest abundance. The modern catechism is optimism. Thou shalt not doubt, thou shalt not mourn, thou shalt believe in endless growth. But beneath the smiling surface lies exhaustion. To maintain happiness as a moral duty is to wage war against reality. The moment sadness arises, one feels guilt for failing the doctrine of positivity. The worshipper becomes both sinner and confessor, smiling through despair lest he be accused of darkness. Observe the marketplace of souls, endless products promising serenity, confidence, success. Every brand a small messiah offering deliverance from the ordinary. But the will is clever. It sells us escape only to bind us tighter. The more we seek fulfillment in things, the more things define us. The more we chase freedom through abundance, the more abundance enslaves. The advertisements know our hunger better than we do. They whisper that to buy is to become. And so, the human, proud creature of reason becomes a collector of symbols, surrounding himself with substitutes for being until death interrupts the subscription. Love, too, has been conscripted into this theater. What was once the sacred madness of poets is now an algorithm, a marketplace of profiles. We swipe through faces as through commodities, trading depth for efficiency. The will smiles behind the screen, delighted by its new efficiency. What we call romance is merely the will courting itself through digital mirrors, desire searching for its reflection, then tiring once it finds it. Even in tenderness, calculation seeps in, compatibility scores, performance metrics of affection. We seek connection but fear intimacy. We crave union yet demand autonomy. The contradiction tears quietly beneath the glow of our devices. In every age, love has been the will's masterpiece of deception. It persuades two beings that they have discovered transcendence, when, in truth, they are instruments of reproduction. The poetry of devotion conceals the arithmetic of biology, and still it feels sublime, for even illusion, when believed completely, becomes truth within the believer. The tragedy of love is not that it ends, but that while it lasts, it convinces us of eternity. When the spell breaks, we mourn not only the beloved, but the death of the illusion that meaning could be held. Art stands as the noblest rebellion against this machinery. In art, for an instant, the will is suspended. The artist contemplates the world without reaching for it, transforms pain into pattern, chaos into form. In the moment of creation or contemplation, there is pure perception, seeing without wanting. Yet even this liberation is fragile. The artist soon hungers again, for recognition, for permanence, for proof that the work mattered. Applause becomes a narcotic fame, a mirror that must constantly be polished. The will has infiltrated even our escapes, turning beauty into commerce, expression into career. And when the applause dies, the artist faces the same abyss he sought to transcend, only now it stares back with irony. The tragedy deepens with success. For what is success but the will achieving visibility? It climbs one mountain only to find another, larger and lonelier. The successful man becomes prisoner to his image, chained to the expectation of more. He no longer lives. He manages existence as a brand. The will, having won every battle, invents new enemies, irrelevance, boredom, the creeping suspicion that the game was rigged from the start. And when finally he tires of striving, the world calls him ungrateful. But in truth, he has simply glimpsed the futility beneath the glitter. Look upon the spectacle of modern culture and see the same pattern repeated in every glittering corner. Politics promises salvation through governance, yet breeds only cycles of power and resentment. The arts promise authenticity, yet collapse under imitation and market logic. Spiritual movements promise awakening, yet monetize transcendence. The will adapts, absorbs, survives. It is the serpent swallowing its own tail, immortal because it feeds on itself. What, then, remains untouched? Perhaps only the faint possibility of seeing through it all not as cynic but as witness, to recognize that the theater is the same everywhere and that awareness itself is the only space not yet colonized by the will, to sit in the audience and finally stop applauding. The play continues, the actors still cry, love, strive. But something in you has fallen silent, not out of contempt but out of comprehension. You see that the curtain will never close, that the applause will never last, and that this endless repetition is the rhythm of existence itself. And in that silence, a strange peace begins to form, not the peace of triumph, but of lucidity. For the world's noise loses its hypnosis once you realize it was always background. The glitter dims, the slogans fade, the endless chase slows. You begin to move through the marketplace as one might walk through rain, aware of the wetness, accepting of it, untouched by the promise of staying dry. This is not detachment born of disdain, but of exhaustion that has turned into wisdom. You no longer seek meaning in the theater, because you understand the actors are masks of the same hunger that lives in you. You no longer demand purity from art, sincerity from politics, eternity from love. You see that all these are gestures of the same blind will, and yet, strangely, they become beautiful precisely because they are doomed. A flower that blooms for an hour is more honest than a diamond that pretends immortality. So you watch the world perform its endless play, and you feel the ache of it, the comedy, the horror. You see the will turning, grinding, creating, destroying. And though the noise remains, its power fades. The curtain of illusion has thinned. Behind it, you glimpse the quiet machinery, the invisible appetite that moves all things. It does not stop, but now you know its name. And knowledge, though it cannot save, can at least awaken. There are moments when the noise falters. You may be walking at dusk, and the world, without warning, becomes transparent. The city hums, the people move, yet something inside you steps aside and merely watches. For a breath, the machinery of wanting slows. The hunger that has named every thought loses language. The air tastes of stillness. A leaf trembles in wind, light touches the wall, and the mind, stripped of purpose, sees without taking. In that instant, the will forgets itself. These instants are not achievements. They arrive uninvited, like cracks in the wall of striving. Music can open them. A minor chord, a distant cello, and suddenly you are elsewhere outside the loop of identity, suspended between notes. Beauty does not console, it arrests. It shows you the world free of appetite, and that freedom feels almost like death. The eyes remain open, but there is no possession behind them, only awareness, vast and untroubled. The saints called this grace, the poets called it awe. Schopenhauer called it aesthetic contemplation. The moment the subject and object dissolve into seeing itself. Such reprieves cannot be held. The instant you notice them, the will returns, whispering, "I feel calm, I must keep this calm," and the spell breaks. Yet the memory lingers like the aftertaste of light, a faint reminder that peace is possible not as conquest, but as absence. The task is not to summon these moments, but to stop clutching when they come, to let them pass through you as wind through reeds. In learning to release, the will weakens, if only slightly, its grip. Compassion is another crack in the armor of self. When the suffering of another pierces our defenses, the illusion of separateness falters. The will recognizes itself across the boundary of flesh. You see a stranger's pain, and something within whispers, "That is me in another form." This is not moral virtue, but metaphysical clarity. All beings are symptoms of the same hunger, sparks from the same unseen fire. To pity is to know that every cry in the world is an echo of your own. True compassion has no pride in it. It is quiet, almost embarrassed by its tenderness. It asks for nothing in return, for it understands that to help another is to soothe the same wound in a different body. There is a subtler liberation, still the wisdom of resignation, not despair, not cynicism, but the sober recognition that the will cannot be conquered by will. One grows tired of the chase, not from defeat, but from insight. The saint sitting in stillness, the artist who withdraws after the applause, the wanderer who chooses silence over argument, they share a secret weariness that has ripened into clarity. They no longer seek victory over life. They let life pass through them. To will nothing is the first taste of peace. From the outside, such resignation looks like melancholy, but within it there is serenity deeper than any joy. Joy is a flame. Serenity is the glow that remains when the flame has used itself up. The world still moves, but its motion no longer dictates the rhythm of your heart. Gain and loss, praise and blame become weather noticed, but no longer worshipped. The will continues its endless turning, but you, at last, have stepped a little to the side, watching without demand. This is not enlightenment as the crowd imagines it, no trumpets, no radiant bliss. It is quieter, humbler, the silence after a storm, when the earth still drips and the air smells of surrender. You have not transcended suffering, you have befriended it. You no longer pray for the absence of pain, because you see that pain and being are woven from the same thread. To wish one gone is to unravel the other. The only honest prayer left is gratitude for clear seeing. And so the moments of release appear and vanish, glimpses of a horizon where the will's fire burns low. Each glimpse leaves behind a trace of calm, enough to bear the next surge of craving with gentleness. The pendulum still swings, but you know its motion. You can feel the still point at its center even as it moves. That awareness is the faint beginning of freedom. Acceptance is not defeat. It is the moment the storm realizes it was made of the same air it fought against. The mind has searched for answers long enough. Its questions have turned to ash in its hands. Now it simply sees. The will still breathes in the body, but awareness no longer calls it mine. The heart beats, hunger stirs, fear flickers, yet behind each motion stands a watcher untouched by motion. The play goes on, and you sit among the shadows, understanding that you were never the actor, but the space in which the actor moved. This seeing is not joy, it is clarity without ornament, a light too pure to comfort. You stop demanding meaning because you recognize that meaning was the mind's last disguise for desire. You stop pleading for justice because you see that life is not a tribunal but a rhythm. The world is neither fair nor unfair, it is simply unedited. Mountains rise, lovers part, empires decay, stars drown in their own light. To say this should not be is to protest the tide. To say this is to breathe with it. The will continues its endless pilgrimage through all forms, through stone and sap, through beast and man, through the dreams that torment and the ideals that console. Nothing is exempt, but awareness, once awakened, is no longer bound to the pilgrimage. It watches the procession as one might watch clouds, shapes appearing, dissolving, reappearing. Suffering remains, but it is suffering observed, no longer multiplied by resistance. Pain still comes, but it arrives alone, without the chorus of fear and complaint that once followed it. In this simplicity, even sorrow becomes transparent. Freedom here is a quiet thing. It does not shout of victory or promise eternal bliss. It sits by the window of existence, watching rain trace lines on the glass, and feels no urge to rewrite the weather. The sage, who has reached this silence, carries no revelation. He carries only the absence of need. He eats when hungry, sleeps when tired, weeps when the heart demands it, and smiles when the sky clears. His life looks ordinary, but within it burns the calm of one who has ceased arguing with reality. This is the bitter freedom. Schopenhauer glimpsed the peace that arises, not from triumph, but from exhaustion, understood as truth. When the will is seen through, hope and despair lose their difference. The same ocean that once terrified now rocks you gently. You realize it was never against you, only vast beyond measure. In that vastness, the self dissolves, and what remains is silence, dense, luminous, final. The flame of striving consumes its last fuel, flickers once and bows out. Darkness returns, but this darkness is not absence, it is rest. The wound closes, not because it is healed, but because there is no longer anyone to name it wound. The world continues to ache, to bloom, to perish, and you, a brief shimmer of awareness within it, have learned to let it. No salvation, no despair, only the still pulse of being unclaimed. Perhaps that is all enlightenment ever was. The moment when wanting stops and the silence that follows is accepted as enough.